Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Wellness Talk podcast. I am George Batista, your host and your wellness advocate. We humans, we have a lot of nerve, don't we? Yes, we do. And that's going to be our discussion today. We're going to be discussing nerves, everything nerve related, and everything we can do to help to keep our nerves in good shape. So we've got two pieces for you today, both from Wellness Resources. The first one is nerve nutrients for comfort, balance, and neuroprotection. So we're going to be talking about what affects our nerves. Oxidative stress, what are all the different things that affect our nerves, and how can we deal with that, right? All the factors that are out there, environmental factors specifically, that really can do a job on our nervous system. We're going to talk about nutritional deficiencies. We're going to talk about the myelin sheath in your brain, and as well as, again, what can degrade the nerves and how we keep it in good shape. So that's part of our discussion. Then we're going to be honing in on one specific nerve problem that is prevalent in society, especially in this day and age, because we're dealing with keyboards and phones and computers and stuff like that. And that is the issue of carpal tunnel syndrome. Great piece from Wellness Resources. Carpal tunnel solutions protect your nerves and brain. So we're going to talk about what is carpal tunnel syndrome, what are the risk factors for it, and how does it affect your brain? That's something that a lot of people don't know. It actually does have an effect on your brain. Also, are all these medications that people are on when they are diagnosed with this problem, are they effective? What do they do? Are they really that effective in helping you? Or is it just smoke and mirrors like a lot of other medications out there? And again, at the end of the day, what are the natural solutions for it? Are there natural solutions? Are there things we can do on the natural side, whether it's supplements, whether it's diet, whether it's just lifestyle in general, that can help protect our nerves? That's what we're going to be discussing today. And then we're just going to kind of do a Nerve 101, just talk a little bit about our nervous system. So it's a lot of stuff, a lot of great information. So make sure you take notes. And of course, thank you for joining me as always. Go to georgebatista.com, check out all these articles. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget, you can put in georgebatista.com / follow, actually, and it'll give you a list of all the platforms that we're on. And then you can pick which one that you want to follow us on, your favorite platform, and then just follow us there. But again, georgebatista.com is the hub. It's pretty much where everything happens. So you can check us out. And of course, we're on social as well. So you can check us out on all those platforms as well. All right, so let's get started. But prior to that, of course, we want to chat a little bit about our friends at my favorite email provider, and that is Proton Mail. If you're looking for an easy-to-use alternative to big tech services and their surveillance business models, check out Proton Mail. Most popular email providers scan the content of your emails and use your email address to create a detailed profile on you and profit from your data, but not Proton Mail. Proton Mail believes your data belongs to you. Proton Mail's end-to-end encryption and zero-access encryption ensure only you can see your emails. Not even Proton can view the content of your emails and attachments. Proton Mail is protected by multiple layers of security and trusted by journalists, security experts, and millions of people around the world. I use Proton Mail to conduct all my business online. Check out Proton Mail today at protonmail.georgebatista.com. Again, that's protonmail.georgebatista.com. If you value your privacy, check out Proton Mail today. All right, so let's get started on our discussion about nerves. And, when we think about nerves, a lot of people don't realize how our nervous system is so integrated in our everyday life, right? It's just not something we really think about. But everything you feel, right, your sensations, warm, cold sensations, pretty much everything from your fingertips all the way down to your toes, everything you feel is intimately correlated with our nervous system, right? It's literally how it works, from the spine all the way up to the brain, literally how you walk, your gait, opening a door, just it's so intertwined with everything. It's really how we see the environment and how we feel the environment. Nerves pretty much are, they coordinate the function of everything that we feel and do in our body. That's how integrated our nervous system is, right? Blood pressure, blood sugar, all these things. So let's take a look at just our nervous system in general so we can kind of just get the 30,000 foot view of this. So when we take a look at our nervous system, right, there's different aspects to it. So we have our central nervous system, right? And that pretty much encompasses our brain and our spinal cord. Then we have the peripheral nervous system and these are the nerves that extend away from the central nervous system, right? So these are the things that obviously a lot of them get pinched, and this is where we start to develop, nerve problems and stuff like that, especially when they're getting pinched on the, by vertebrae and stuff like that. But we'll kind of dive into that a little bit later. Then we have our autonomic nervous system, right? And the autonomic nervous system has two parts. It has the parasympathetic nervous system, PNS, and then we have the sympathetic nervous system, the SNS. One, which is the parasympathetic, is responsible for rest, digest, and repair. And then we have the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for our fight or flight. Okay, so that's just a basic overview of our nervous system. Now let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into the autonomic nervous system. So again, we talked about the two, the parasympathetic nervous system, right, which is our rest, digest, and repair. What does it do? It stimulates our immune system when we need it, right? But it's also responsible for repairs and the repairs of our tissues and the repairs of a lot of things that go on in our system. So for example, when you take a look at rest, digest, repair, right? When you're sleeping, when you're eating, when you're relaxing, when you're just not doing anything crazy, when you're just kind of in the relaxation response, basically this is where your parasympathetic nervous system is kind of taking over, right? When you're eating, what does it do? It helps to make sure that there's blood in the digestive process, right? In the digestive system to help you digest that food, right? So that's your parasympathetic nervous system. Again, it's when you're, even when you're doing things like yoga, when you're meditating, you're doing those things, that's when that system takes over. Conversely, when we have the sympathetic fight or flight system, right, which is, dictated by our thoracic and our lumbar part of our spine, what does that do? It helps to keep you alive under stress. It increases your heart rate, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your LDL cholesterol, your stress hormones, especially with the adrenals, right? When the adrenals secrete catecholamines in the stress response, this is where this part of the nervous system is really, really active. It also decreases blood supply to the gut and your immune system functioning when needed. So if you think about it in terms of when you're, let's say, we go back to the eating, right? When you're eating a meal. Now, typically when you're eating a meal, you're supposed to be relaxed. Really, that's what you're supposed to be relaxed, but most people are not, right? But let's just say you're relaxed, right? You got your parasympathetic nervous system helping you with digestion, right? And then you kind of, even after your meal, you're kind of winding down, let's say for the day, you're relaxing, and this is where all the blood is helping you digest all the food and stuff like that. Well, we have a lot of people who are working in offices, for example. It's crazy. Let's say you work for the stock exchange and you're eating on the run. This is where you can get caught in between. Why? Because you're doing two things at one time. You're hyper stimulated, so you have your fight or flight going, you're arguing with people, you've got meetings, you got things going on, you're rushing, right? You got deadlines, all this stuff. So your fight or flight is really kicking in, but then you're eating a sandwich at the same time. What's going to happen? Your body is going to shuttle all the blood away from the digestive process, and it's going to shuttle it to the outer limbs because your body thinks that you're running away from the tiger. That's the stress response, right? And it's going to shuttle it away from digestion. So what happens in that case? This is where a lot of people in those cases get digestive problems, right? They get stomach upset. They get GERD, right? Gastrointestinal reflux disease. They get all these things because they're not digesting properly, because they're not allowing their body to digest properly. This is a problem, right? So this is where I say my first tip would be, those of you who are in those types of situations, try it if at all possible. I know it's not always possible, but to try to get away from that when you're eating your lunch or breakfast or whatever it is that you're eating. A lot of people eat at their desk while they're working. It's one of the worst things to do, right? Most people can get 15 minutes or a half hour lunch to get away. Some people can get into their car and just kind of decompress and relax and eat their meal. It's a good thing. It's a good habit to get into because, again, you want to try to stimulate that parasympathetic sympathetic nervous part to try to help you decompress and help you relax and help you digest. So, again, just my 2 cents on that, but that's just, again, nervous system basics. Of course, there's a lot more that goes into that, but I just wanted to kind of cover that just for you folks, just to kind of, get a sense of nervous system 101. So now let's get into these articles here. And the first one is, actually I have the wrong one here. Here we go. First one is Nerve Nutrients for Comfort, Balance, and Neuroprotection. And again, this is from Wellness Resources. So we're going to talk specifically about the peripheral nervous system first. And again, what is the peripheral nervous system? Well, it's made up of nerves of various shapes and sizes and small fiber nerves and long axons. These different nerves relay sensory and motor movement information to and from their local area, brain and spinal cord, and much more. Some types of nerves have a layer, and this is key here, a layer of insulation and or protection called myelin. Now, we've heard of the myelin sheath, right? In your brain, you have the myelin sheath. So a lot of these nerves have these myelin protection. Why? Because it allows for faster neurotransmission and protection of the nerve. But you have to maintain the structural integrity of this myelin, because if the myelin starts to degrade, this is where you start to get into all the different types of nerve problems. So what can we get into? Well, obviously, some of the things that can affect our nerves are ROS, reactive oxygen species, free radicals, right? Nerves need antioxidants to maintain healthy cell membranes and rebuild the insulation layer or remyelination, right? So if you're losing some of that myelin sheath, you have to make sure you are getting those antioxidants in, because that helps with remyelination. Yes, you can remyelinate, but you need the raw materials to do that. Well, if you don't have the raw materials, again, you end up with oxidative stress. You end up with lipid peroxidation, which is, again, I've talked about this before, a damaging of fat cells, and fat cells specifically in the nerve cells, right? And again, this is what surrounds the myelin sheath, and this can cause a disruption in capillary blood flow to the nerves, which can affect the nutrition and can affect the nerves. Eventually, this can, cause all types of, sensitivity problems, irritability, pain, neuropathy, all that type of stuff. Because if you don't have the proper nutrition and, to help with remyelination. Now, what are the factors that can cause, problems with our nerves? Okay, that can cause oxidative stress to the nerves. So we have blood sugar dysregulation, advanced glycation end products. You see that's a lot in diabetes, alcohol use, cold exposure, burns, radiation, pinched nerves or entrapment. We're going to talk about that. Celiac disease, heavy metal toxicity, infections. You're talking about Lyme, HIV, syphilis, stuff like that. High uric acid, gout issues as well. Autoimmune disorders, we all know about that. Even things like gastric bypass and other gastric surgeries that can impair absorption can all lead to problems with our nerves. Also, medications. So if you're on specific medications, antimicrobial medications, anti-seizure, chemotherapy. Chemotherapy does a big job on nerves. Besides bones, it can also do a big job on nerves as well. Other types of medications, including, tumor necrosis factor alpha inhibitors, these types of things. Just, many different medications can really wreak havoc. So if you're not sure, check with your doctor, check with your pharmacist if you are on any of these types of medications, and see if, how impactful they can be with, in terms of nerve health. So nerves need a lot of support. They need a lot of nutrients. They need a lot of antioxidants, and we're going to get into that. But let's get into one specific problem or nerve problem that a lot of people are dealing with, and that is carpal tunnel. Okay, so carpal tunnel syndrome, again, it's very prevalent, in society because of everything that we're doing, all the environmental factors. So this is from Wellness Resources. Carpal tunnel solutions protect your nerves and your brain. So let's get into it. So over 3 million individuals per year experience carpal tunnel syndrome. Now, what is carpal tunnel syndrome? Basically, it's a neuropathy affecting a single nerve, right? It's called the median nerve, and it runs through a narrow passage going down to the wrist called the carpal tunnel, right? And obviously, if that nerve is pinched or compressed in any way, you start to get the symptoms, right? Numbness, tingling, pain in the thumb, index, or middle finger, hand, and sometimes even your forearm. And this can come and go. A lot of people say that it comes and goes. Sometimes it's more prevalent than others. It can progress into restlessness, tingling, burning sensations, numbness. It can make it difficult to work. It can make it difficult to sleep. There have been people that I've seen that have actually had, they've had to put on some kind of wrist or bandage or something like that to literally deal with their carpal tunnel issues. So it can be a big problem. Now, nerve entrapment or compression occurs in the wrist or within the carpal tunnel or higher up in the forearm. And this is what is one of the issues that can lead to carpal tunnel syndrome, okay? And, when we look at the carpal tunnel, it's really almost like a little circle. It's almost like a little tunnel. That's why they call it carpal tunnel. You could almost like fit a dime in there. That's kind of how the nerve and the way the nerve is situated in the wrist. But what a lot of people don't realize is that this can also be what's called a double crush injury. Now, and I say that meaning that it's not necessarily something that can be in the wrist, right? It's not necessarily always a wrist problem. It can actually be a shoulder problem or even a neck problem. A lot of chiropractors report that a lot of people with carpal tunnel syndrome actually have impingement in the neck. And because remember, we like we talked about before, right? We have all these nerves that come out of the spinal column, especially in the cervical spine, right? And we have the brachial plexus that comes out of the cervical spinal area, right? And it goes all the way down your arms and your hands and your fingers and that type of things, right? So if there's something pinched up here in the neck, it can actually affect the nerve, the median nerve that goes all the way down, and you can actually start to get symptoms of carpal tunnel. For example, if you have kyphosis, for example, if you have forward head carriage, that can impinge on the nerve and actually lead to carpal tunnel. So it's not just necessarily a wrist problem. It can be, but it's not necessarily a wrist problem. And the other thing with this also is that in this time in society, and this is just my take on it. Again, I'm just giving you my view on this. But in this time in society, especially in the last 30 years, we've been hunched over computers more than ever, right? With the advent of the computer and the phones and stuff like that, we're hunched over. We're like this. We're typing. So think about it. Take kind of a logical look at this. We're hunched over our computers. We don't have great posture at all. So what happens? Eventually things start to get pinched. And of course that's going to affect the nerves. It's going to affect all these median nerves that come down here, right? And it's going to lead to pain. So we are having problems just with our posture alone, which can lead to all these things. And again, this didn't necessarily exist 50, 60, 70 years ago because we didn't have as many people hunched over keyboards, right? Yeah, people were typing. You always had news reporters typing and secretaries typing years and years ago, but it was not as prevalent as it is now. Now, you're hunched over your phone now. Forget about, typing. You're hunched over your phone and you're just looking down at your phone. And of course, again, we've got now kids growing up with neck problems. Well, now we know why. So just by the fact of the way our society is now, and what we deal with in the technology and all that type of stuff makes it a big problem as well, in my opinion, of course. Now, so what are the risk factors for carpal tunnel? Okay, so obviously, we have individuals who smoke, drink, have diabetes, all these types of things. They're more likely to develop carpal tunnel syndrome. This is according to studies, by the way. As a matter of fact, a July 2017 cross-sectional survey found that women who were obese, regardless of their conditions, had much higher likelihood of carpal tunnel syndrome, and it was more severe. Also, research information from December 2017 shows that obstructive sleep apnea is a risk factor for carpal tunnel as well. In this study, scientists determined the main driving factor in patients with sleep apnea was not sleep position or manual labor, but rather it was intermittent changes in breathing from sleep apnea that led to the development of carpal tunnel. Interesting. Right? So now we're seeing sleep apnea a big risk factor. So not only just, illnesses and conditions like whether it's diabetes or smoking or drinking and just a bad lifestyle, just things like sleep apnea. Very, very interesting. Also, now, of course, again, we have the repetitive strain issue in terms of keyboards, which I was just talking about. But again, I don't think that is as much of an issue as impingement in, let's say, the shoulder or the cervical spine. Just my read on it. I could be wrong. I'm not a chiropractor on this. Now, here's another thing a lot of people don't know. Did you know that the brain is also affected by carpal tunnel syndrome? I'm going to read directly from this. So apparently, carpal tunnel syndrome occurs not just due to local changes in the wrist, right, or in the cervical spine, but neuroplasticity changes occur within the brain. This is why symptoms often fail to resolve for months after the carpal tunnel has been released through surgery. Since the early to mid-2000s, researchers have found that part of the brain, the somatosensory cortex, starts to remodel in response to the carpal tunnel nerve entrapment. So now we don't just have a physical component here. So now it's not just entrapping the nerve, release the nerve, everything's good. Now we're seeing changes literally in the part of the brain, right? That's important because that part of the brain, the somatosensory cortex, is the region that receives input from the sensory nerves, right, throughout the body. Okay. And these nerves, this is where you sense pain. This is where you sense temperature, body position, right? Proprioception, which is body position, the way your brain sees your body in space, right? This is all the stimulus. This is the part of the brain that kind of coordinates all that. So we're seeing now a change literally in the brain. And it says here, due to the chronic pain, tingling, and inflammation within the carpal tunnel, scientists have found that the brain's somatosensory cortex is remodeled or has undergone neuroplastic changes in carpal tunnel syndrome. So you literally are changing the brain when you are at that point. That's very, very interesting. Also, let's take a look at nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories, right? Especially the long-term ones and steroids and things like that, because this is what they're going to put you on if you're dealing with this long-term. Maybe you've had surgery, or maybe you've just been in pain for many, many years. So obviously there's going to be some pain management in that, maybe some therapy and stuff like that. So there's been some recent research. This is back in 2018. It shows that long-term nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory and oral steroid use for carpal tunnel syndrome does not provide benefit. Scientists believe symptoms persist because of how the brain has remodeled in response to the constant nerve pain and entrapment signals, right? So this goes back to the brain now. So we're seeing that the brain now is remodeling because of pain. Now, again, a lot of neuroscientists, a lot of people who are in that business know that. They know that your brain can eventually remodel depending on the stimulus that you're dealing with, whether it's pain, whether it's body position, whether you have a deviation, things like that, right? We all know, again, that the brain doesn't have two eyes to see the body. right? So it has to rely on sensors. It has to rely on, again, proprioception. It has to rely on all these sensors that go up and down the spine. It has to mechanoreceptors. It has to it has to rely on all these things to tell the brain what's going on. So this is a big issue. This is a big issue especially for people who have gone through the surgical route and are not feeling relief, right? So one of my biggest things in terms of dealing with carpal tunnel syndrome or just nerve health in general, before we even get to the supplementation and or the food and stuff like that, is I would recommend those of you who are dealing with anything like that is to go see a corrective chiropractor, right? I go to a chiropractor regularly, and it helps me out a lot. I do a lot of things on my own as well. I have a lot of spinal issues, but a corrective chiropractor, they can do a number of things. They can assess you. They can take some x-rays if they have an x-ray machine, and then they can start to correct the problem. Because we as a society are dealing with posture issues like crazy. Again, from sitting for long periods of time, from being hunched over our phones, hunched over our keyboards, like I talked about before. So if you go to a corrective chiropractor, they can see whether you have a deviation. They can see whether you have a disc is being compressed. The nerves are being compressed, right? The median nerves are being compressed. They can see if you've got, any kind of deviation, any kind of, whatever it is. And they can start to correct the problem. Now, of course, it's not overnight. They do this over a long period of time, so you've got to go to them regularly. But that would be my first tip for people like that. I pretty much can say that, I think a good corrective chiropractor who's dealt with this before can really support and help you if you are dealing with these issues. A lot of compression going on right now in society. A lot of compression. People don't even realize it. They just think, I got a backache. Oh, my neck hurts every once in a while. But it can be a problem. So that's my first tip, just to kind of deal with any kind of nerve compression, even carpal tunnel syndrome, whatever. Obviously, again, you see your doctor in these types of things, and they may recommend all different types of therapies. They may recommend you when you're sitting, make sure you're sitting, you have a right keyboard position, right, ergonomically, right? There are a lot of keyboards now and different pads and different things that they sell to help keep your wrists in the proper position. So they have all that as well. That can help. There's pillows and things that you can put in the back to keep your back up and straight so you're not compressing any nerves. There's even chairs, right? We've got X chairs and all these chairs that help keep your body in a good position, right? There's a huge market for all this stuff. So those are things you can take a look at. Now, what about the nutrition side of things? Are there things we can do on the nutrition side to help with carpal tunnel, to help with nerves in general? So let's take a look. So nutritional deficiencies, obviously it's a big thing. I talk about that all the time. Insufficient B vitamins, B1, B2, B6, B12, folate, and copper are recognized and causes of significant nerve stress. Other insufficient nutrients, as those listed below, are also affect the resiliency of nerves and their function. We'll go through those as well. Deficiencies may be caused by low dietary intake, reduced absorption in the gut, or drug nutrient depletions. Now, what's important for nerves in terms of antioxidants? Your nerves require lifelong protection with antioxidants to quench free radicals, right? So what are the big antioxidants that help? R-alpha-lipoic acid is huge. Acetyl L-carnitine, great brain nutrient. Taurine is a great relaxing nutrient, helps with GABA as well. Melatonin, another relaxing nutrient, but antioxidant as well. Vitamin A and vitamin C. Great nutrients and antioxidants for nerve health. You got to make sure that you have enough of this stuff, right? Also, lipoic acid is of great support for nerves. It's naturally found in red meat, beets, broccoli, carrots, potatoes, and spinach in small amounts. Supplementation with bioactive alpha-lipoic acid of 100 to 600 milligrams per day is often helpful for nerve antioxidant protection. Lipoic acid has been shown to protect against lipid peroxidation, right? I talked about that. Support nerve conduction and improve blood flow to nerves. Alpha-lipoic acid is 100% bioactive compared to alpha-lipoic acid. So you want R-alpha-lipoic acid. That is the most bioavailable. So keep that down, write that down as well. Keep that in the notes. Next, nutrients for the myelin sheath and nerve cell membranes. Remember, we talked about the insulation of the nerves, right? The myelin sheath that protects the nerves and allows for faster neurotransmission of nerve impulses, right? So, the physical makeup of nerves, cell membranes, myelin sheath, and electrical activities require a variety of nutrients. Omega-3s, that's a big one. Omega-3s, why? Because omega-3s, they literally give our cells, they're literally a part of our cells. They literally give us all the fat that we need, and they are critical in making sure that you've got good fat and it's not you don't get lipid peroxidation, basically, right? We need omega-3s. Arachidonic acid, eggs and red meat, cholesterol, phospholipids like phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylserine, and proteins. Without these various fats, electrical activity and structures are greatly compromised. Put that down. Next, PEA, okay? I talked about PEA. We did a whole thing on it a few shows ago, but it's a critical bioactive lipid, okay? But it's crucial for nerve support and repair. There was a recent study in mice demonstrated that PEA increased myelin sheath thickness, the size and number of nerve fibers, and as well as reduced infiltration of immune cells and waste products. PEA is a great one. You could take a look at that from Wellness Resources. And then nutrients such as calcium, AEP from Wellness Resources, B vitamins, copper, vitamin E, vitamin D, iron, and N-acetylglucosamine are used for protection and natural remyelination of the myelin sheath. Plus, on top of that, hydration. Hydration is required also for proper myelin function. A lot of people don't know that. Electrolytes and hydration. So things, obviously you got to drink the water, all the water you need to make sure cell membranes have enough of the fluids, but also the electrolytes, right, to help with nerve conduction, right, nerve conduction and all that type of stuff as well. But loss of hydration and electrolytes places a strain on the electrical activity and increases oxidative stress against the nerves. So again, you got to have that as well. So let's take a look at dietary recommendations. On top of that, obviously whole foods, fatty fish, eggs and other animal proteins, whole grains, fruits and vegetables, beans, legumes, choose organic if at all possible. You got to have the food first. That's the foundation of everything. Food has to be key here. Now, let's take a look at some foundational supplements, of course, from Wellness Resources. You can go to myvitaminresource.com to check out those supplements as well. These are the ones that I like and the top choices. For foundation supplements, obviously the Daily Energy Multivitamins, the one I take, Daily DHA and Vitamin D. Those are the big ones. And then if you want, on top of that, advanced nerve support, you can take a look at their PEA Ultra, alpha-lipoic acid, or brain protector, calcium AEP, B12 plus folate, acetyl L-carnitine, super brain booster, and then also things like daily detoxify, blood booster, and sleep helper. So great nutrients, because you're also going to have things that calm the nerves as well. Like magnesium is a great thing to calm nerves, calm the whole nervous system as well. So I would suggest magnesium in that. They have a great one, Relax Mag, one of my favorites to take. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of things you can do to keep the nerves healthy, keep them functioning properly, but what you don't want is a degradation of the nerves. So you want to do everything you can to make sure you have those nerves firing, you have those nerves myelinated, make sure they're protected. That's very, very key. So What do we say here? We say nutrition is key, right? The food that you're eating, obviously that helps. The supplement approach, all the supplements I just went over, all the vitamins and minerals, amino acids and fatty acids that I just went over, that's all part of it, okay? Also, obviously, exercise, keeping yourself healthy, that also has an impact on your nerves and your brain, right? And your spine as well, keeping your spine healthy, keeping your spine strong. Then we have, if you do have an issue, whether it's carpal tunnel, whether you have nerve impingement or you've got some deviation, got some back problems, whatever, again, obviously see your doctor, make sure that, you don't have anything major going on. But again, I would also suggest checking out a corrective chiropractor if it's more of a physical issue, because again, they're going to be able to take a look at and see what impingements are there versus just kind of drugging it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you want to get down to the bottom of it, right? You want to actually release the nerves if they're compressed. You want to make sure you are doing everything you can to get to the root of the problem, not just drugging it and saying, okay, I'm not in pain anymore, but it's not helping. That's not really taking responsibility. So do everything you can to get to the root of it and then to, really start to address it from that issue. If you do that and you work with your doctors and you do everything you can, you're well on your way to hopefully feeling better and or at least maintaining or not getting worse and supporting your overall health, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't treat, first of all, we don't treat anybody here, right? But, I always just say when I work with clients, I'm not treating anything. I'm not even dealing with the issue that I'm not even talking about the issue that you're dealing with, if it's a blood sugar, blood pressure issue, or whatever it is. I'm treating you as a person. I'm giving you all the nutrients and everything the body needs to heal itself. That's the way I approach it, okay? And remember, the other thing that I always say, adaptation. Your nervous system is involved in adaptation, right? Your body adapts to your environment. That's what symptoms are. And I've talked about this many times in this program, but it bears repeating. The symptoms that you have, whether it's carpal tunnel pain or whether it's, pain in the back or whatever the case may be, nerve pain, tingling, numbness, whatever it is, those are symptoms. That's telling you that there's an issue. That's a warning sign that there's something going on, whether it's something pinched or whether it is. What is your body doing? Your body's adapting, right? Your body's adapting to the stressor, to the physical, chemical, and emotional stress. Every symptom is an adaptation by your body. Blood pressure going up is an adaptation. Blood sugar going up is an adaptation, right? All that stuff. It's your body's way of adapting correctly to a stimulus. Remember that. And your nerves are intimately involved in that because your nerves are coordinating all that. Your nerves help your body adapt. So keeping it all together and keeping it all well is extremely important. Don't ever forget that. All right, guys, so I hope this has helped you. I want to thank you for joining me as always. It's always a pleasure and an honor to bring you this information. Share this information, please. Get it out there to friends and family. Get it out to everyone that you think can benefit from this. And do your research. Always do your research. Don't just go by what people tell you. Even me. Do your research and see if it makes sense to you. All right, guys, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And as always, control your health. See you next time.